Also at this hour, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Germany. He's there to negotiate the US-backed peace deal with Russia. He's meeting US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, for the talks. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz are also expected to take part in the talks. But the host of these talks, Merz, struck a pessimistic note just one day prior. On Saturday, Merz spoke at the party conference of his political ally, the Christian Social Union.
The decades of the Pax Americana are largely over for us in Europe, and also for us in Germany as well. It no longer exists as we knew it, and nostalgia won't change that. And I would be one of the last people who wouldn't gladly indulge in that nostalgia. But it's no use. That's the way it is. The Americans are now very, very ruthlessly pursuing their own interests.
Merz says that Europe's days of safety under the American security umbrella are over. He added that the Americans are now pursuing their own agenda, and that too ruthlessly. Merz believes that this marks the end of the post-World War II international order and that Europe needs to look after itself now. The German Chancellor's comment came in the wake of America's new national security strategy. In the document, Washington was extremely critical of the European Union in particular. The Trump administration believes that Europe will be unrecognizable in the next 20 years and is on the verge of civilizational destruction. The US said that because of these factors, some European allies will remain reliable. It said they will not have the economic or military potential to support American interests. The security strategy coincides with a new deadline. The US wants Europe to take over most of NATO's conventional defense capabilities by 2027. NATO, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a bedrock of the post-World War II order. It has been the US-led Western security umbrella, and America doesn't seem to want to hold up that umbrella anymore. Merz seemed to acknowledge that in his speech, and his worry was that without the US, Europe was directly in the crosshairs of Putin.
Yes, we are not at war, but we no longer live in peace either, and we must be clear about that.
Merz fears that Putin will not stop at Ukraine. He hinted that territorial concessions will not be enough to appease the Russian president, and the German Chancellor used an example from his own country to emphasize the point. Merz spoke about the Munich Agreement of 1938. That's when Britain, France and Italy allowed Adolf Hitler to annex parts of the present-day Czech Republic. Hitler had demanded Czech land inhabited by Germans. It was known as the Sudetenland. Hitler promised it would be his last territorial claim in Northern Europe. The other nations took him at his word and decided to give in. This was on September 30th, 1938, just about 1 year before World War II began. And so Merz compared Putin to Hitler. The German Chancellor claims that Putin's goal is to change the borders of Europe and eventually restore the old Soviet Union. By invoking the Sudetenland crisis, Merz warned that Putin cannot be stopped with concessions, and he said it was now up to Europe to defend itself, and that too without the United States. We earlier spoke to Dr. Glenn Diesen. He's a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway, and this is what he told us.
Well, I don't think the United States would leave NATO. It would be very difficult because there's a lot of opposition to this within the political system in the United States. But what I think Trump could do is make the alliance impotent. That is by questioning to what extent the US would actually come to the aid of the Europeans and also sowing these divisions, which we're seeing now. That is that Trump's pointing to the growing authoritarianism in the EU, the economic decline, the obsession with war, lack of diplomacy, the inability to reproduce its own culture. Now, all of this could be correct, and well, let's say it is correct, but I think it also has a purpose behind it. That is to have a bit of an amicable divorce, not a complete divorce, but for the Europeans to be pushed a little bit into pursuing their own path forward, their own independence. So, but again, I think a lot of this will fuel a lot of uncertainty within Europe, because the Europeans can't possibly aspire to match US military power. And I think so far, part of the strategy of the European leaders has been to create all these narratives of a Russian hybrid war against Europe in order to draw the United States deeper into the war against Russia. But it seems that they're failing towards this end.